The bell above the door doesn't ring softly, it slams. The kind of slam that cuts through steam and conversation and the low hum of a refrigerator unit that needs replacing. Every head in the small shop turns, every head except Nico's. He is behind the counter with both hands pressed flat against the glass display case, eyes down, breath steady, because the morning rush has already wrecked his nerves, and he does not have the patience for another difficult customer. The espresso machine is hissing. Someone left a dirty rag on the wrong shelf again. The sourdough in the back oven has 4 minutes left, and Nico can already smell it starting to catch on the edges. He does not look up. "I'll be with you in a second," he says. Flat, practiced. The voice of a man who has learned to manage his own softness before anyone else can use it against him. The shop goes quiet. Not the polite kind of quiet, the held breath kind. The kind where even the espresso machine seems to pause mid-hiss, like it too is waiting to see what happens next. Nico looks up. The man standing at the door is not browsing. He is not checking his phone or squinting at the chalkboard menu above the counter. He is just standing there, still as stone, with one hand resting loosely at his side and the other holding a single matte black card between two fingers, like it weighs nothing and costs everything. He is tall, unreasonably tall, dark coat, no tie, jaw sharp enough to leave a mark. His eyes move across the room the way a blade moves across skin, not searching, not curious, just cutting, deciding. He scans the space in under 3 seconds, and then those eyes land on Nico. They do not move again. Nico's chest does something it has no business doing at 8:47 in the morning. He presses his palms harder against the glass. "Welcome in," Nico says. "What can I get you?" The man walks forward, unhurried, the kind of unhurried that is not laziness but ownership. The walk of someone who has never once rushed for anything because everything has always waited for him. He reaches the counter and sets the matte black card down without a word. Nico looks at the card, looks back up. "I'm picking up a repair," the man says. His voice is low. It does not rise at the end like a question. It lands like a statement of fact that the world had better agree with. Nico blinks. This is a bakery. A pause. The sign outside says Kellerman and Cross Goods and Jewelry Repair. Nico exhales slowly through his nose. The jewelry repair counter is in the back. "I'll need your name and your claim ticket." The man reaches into his coat pocket without breaking eye contact and slides a folded paper across the counter. Nico picks it up, unfolds it, reads the name printed at the top of the ticket in his own handwriting from 3 days ago when he took the item in and did not think twice about it because it was just another job, just another piece, just another customer, whose name he was never going to need to remember. The name on the ticket is Nathan Lancel. Nico reads it once, then he reads it again. The oven timer goes off in the back. He does not move. "Sir?" Nathan says. Not loud, not rude, just present. The word drops into the silence like a stone into still water. Nico folds the ticket back along its original crease. He turns. He walks to the back counter with even, measured steps, and he does not run his thumb across the scar on his left wrist the way he always does when something is pulling at him. He keeps his hands still. He keeps his face still. He opens the small, secure drawer beneath the repair shelf, and he takes out the item, wrapped in soft black cloth, and he carries it back to the counter. He sets it down. He unwraps it. And there it is. A watch. Vintage. The kind of piece that does not get made anymore because no one has the patience for that level of craft. The case is 18-karat gold with a brushed matte finish. The crystal is sapphire, hand-fitted, with one small chip along the lower edge that Nico spent 40 minutes working around. The band is original crocodile leather, worn in exactly the way leather gets worn when someone has loved a thing for decades. The face shows a Roman numeral dial, cream-coloured, with a second hand that sweeps instead of ticks. Nico had held this watch for 3 days. He had turned it over in his hands during the quiet hours between closing and opening. He had noted the engraving on the caseback, 2 initials and a year, because engraving always tells you something about a piece that the owner never says out loud. He had cleaned it, adjusted the movement, replaced the crown. He had not let himself think about where he had seen it before. He lets himself think about it now. The air in the shop has shifted. Nico can feel it, the same way you feel a change in weather before the clouds arrive. He keeps his eyes on the watch. He keeps his hands flat on the counter. "Everything looks good," he says. "Movement is running clean. I replaced the crown. The original was stripped. The crystal chip is structural, not cosmetic, so I left it. Some things are better kept the way they are." Nathan looks at the watch for a long moment. Something moves across his face. Not emotion exactly, more like the shadow of emotion, the shape of it passing overhead without landing. "How much?" Nathan says. Nico tells him. Nathan pays without negotiating, without looking at the total twice, without any of the small performances that people put on when they want you to know that money is something they think about. He just pays. He slides his card across. He waits. Nico processes the transaction, prints the receipt, slides it back. Their fingers do not touch. There is a full inch of counter between them. But when Nathan picks up the receipt and folds it into his coat pocket, he pauses. Just for half a second. His eyes drop to the watch still resting on the cloth between them, and something in his expression pulls tighter, like a string being tuned up one careful notch. "My father wore this every day for 31 years, Nathan says. He is not talking to Nico exactly. He is talking to the air in front of him, to some version of a memory that lives just past the counter. He never took it off. Not once." Nico says nothing. "He gave it to me the morning he died," Nathan continues. "I've had it for 5 years. The espresso machine kicks back on. Someone near the window laughs at something on their phone. The world keeps moving exactly the way it always does, indifferent and ordinary. But Nico's hands have gone cold. 5 years. He wraps the watch carefully, hands it over. Watches Nathan tuck it into his inside coat pocket, like returning it to its rightful place. "Come back if you need anything else," Nico says. Nathan looks at him one more time. Those eyes, pale grey, almost silver, the kind of colour that looks different depending on the light, move across Nico's face with the same cutting efficiency as before. Reading, deciding, finding nothing worth stopping on. "I will," he says, and then he turns and walks back out through the door the same way he came in. The bell slams again. The shop exhales. Nico stands at the counter for 4 full seconds without moving. Then he walks to the back, opens the oven, and pulls out the sourdough. It has caught on the edges, just like he knew it would. He sets it on the cooling rack and stares at the dark crust forming along the side, and he does not think about the watch, or the name, or the pale grey eyes, or the 5 years. He does not think about any of it. Hi viewers, here is something I need you to answer for me right now in the comments. If you found out the person who changed your entire life walked back into it 5 years later and didn't even recognize your face, would you say something? Or would you stay quiet and protect yourself? Tell me below, I need to know. He does not think about the child at home with silver eyes who has never once asked about his father, because Nico has always changed the subject before the question could fully form. He does not think about the night 5 years ago, when he was 20 years old, and the world felt enormous and terrifying, and for one single evening, someone made it feel small enough to hold. He does not think about Nathan Lancel's voice saying, "My father wore this every day for 31 years. And the way that sentence reached into a part of Nico he has spent half a decade cementing shut. He picks up a cloth. He wipes down the cooling rack. Nathan Lancel is gone. He paid his bill. He picked up his watch. He will not be back. Except the next morning, at 8:43, the bell above the door slams again. And Nathan Lancel is standing at the counter. He orders black coffee. No greeting. No explanation. He sets 2 bills on the counter, takes the cup Nico slides across, and sits at the corner table by the window, the one that faces the street and keeps his back to the wall. He is there for 11 minutes. He reads nothing, checks his phone twice, and leaves without looking at Nico again. The next morning he is back at 8:41. Black coffee, corner table, 11 minutes. Gone. By the fourth morning, Nico stops waiting for an explanation and starts watching instead. Because something is wrong. Not with Nathan exactly, with the watch. Each morning when Nathan sits down and unbuttons his coat, Nico can see it on his wrist. The vintage gold face, the cream dial, the worn leather band. Nathan touches it exactly once per visit. A single pass of his thumb across the crystal, so fast it looks like habit rather than choice. Like a man checking that something real is still there. Nico knows that movement. He has seen it before, not on Nathan, on himself. He does it with the small photograph he keeps folded in the back of his wallet, a picture he has never shown anyone, taken in the hospital room, the morning everything changed and kept changing. He recognizes the gesture because it belongs to grief. And that is the first moment Nico makes the mistake of seeing Nathan Lancel as something other than a problem. He corrects it immediately. He turns back to the display case. He arranges the almond pastries in the front row and does not look at the corner table again until Nathan is already gone. On the sixth morning, something shifts. Nathan arrives at 8:39, 2 minutes earlier than usual, which Nico notices because he notices everything, always has. It is the part of himself he has never been able to shut off. Nathan sits, he orders, and then, for the first time, he does not look at his phone. He looks at the room. His eyes move slowly, across the display case, across the chalkboard menu, across the small framed photographs along the east wall, local shots, street scenes, a picture of the original storefront from 1982. His eyes stop on the jewellery repair counter in the back. Then they stop on Nico. Nico is already looking away. He does not know if Nathan caught him. He does not check. He hears the chair scrape back, hears footsteps, looks up when he has to. Nathan is standing at the counter. "You repaired the watch yourself," Nathan says. It is not a question. "Yes," Nico says. "Where did you train?" "Apprenticeship. Took me 3 years." Nathan nods once. His eyes drop briefly to Nico's hands on the counter, steady, still, and then come back up. "You're good at it." "I know," Nico says. Something moves at the corner of Nathan's mouth. It is not quite a smile. It is the shape a smile would leave behind if it passed through too quickly to land. "How long have you had the shop?" Nathan asks. 4 years. "You built this from scratch?" "Yes." Nathan looks around the space again. The exposed brick on the north wall, the pendant lights Nico rewired himself the first winter when the electrical kept tripping, the small chalkboard sign near the register that says, "Today's special," in Nico's own handwriting because he never got around to buying a proper board. "It works," Nathan says. Nico does not know what that means exactly. He does not ask. "Is there something else you need, Mr. Lancel?" Nathan's eyes come back to him at the name. A fraction of a pause. "No," he says. "That's everything." He goes back to his table. He finishes his coffee. He leaves at 8:51, 10 minutes instead of 11. That night, Nico sits at the kitchen table after his son is asleep, and he lays both hands flat on the surface and breathes. Just breathes. In through the nose, out through the mouth, the way his doctor taught him when the anxiety used to spike at 2 in the morning and stay until dawn. He does not say Nathan's name out loud. He does not need to. It is already there, sitting in the back of his throat like a word he swallowed wrong. He picks up his phone, sets it back down, gets up, checks on his son, stands in the doorway of the small bedroom and watches the rise and fall of that small chest in the dark. Watches the silver-grey light from the street lamp outside fall across his boy's face. His boy. His son has his mouth, his nose, the way he sleeps with one arm thrown wide and the other tucked under his chin. That is all Nico. But the eyes. Even closed, even still, even in sleep, those eyes are not Nico's. Nico pulls the door to, goes back to the kitchen, sits back down. He will tell Nathan tomorrow, he thinks. He will just say it. He will set down the coffee cup and look directly across the counter and say the words that have been living in his chest for 5 years, like a stone he has grown so used to carrying, he has stopped noticing the weight. He does not tell Nathan tomorrow. He does not tell him the day after that either. By the second week, Nathan Lancel is a fixture. 8:39 every morning, black coffee, corner table, 11 minutes. He and Nico exchange between 6 and 12 words per visit, never more, never less. Nico learns that Nathan takes his coffee at exactly the right temperature, not scalding, not warm, just the narrow band between. He learns that Nathan always sets his phone face down on the table. He learns that Nathan is left-handed, which Nico notices because the watch sits on his right wrist, opposite the standard, and he wears it the way a left-handed person wears something they want to keep close to their dominant side. Nico learns these things the way you learn things you are not trying to learn, quietly, involuntarily, the way water finds the cracks you did not know were there. And then, on the 9th morning, Nathan sets his cup down halfway through and says, without looking up, "You have a kid." Nico goes still. Nathan nods toward the far end of the counter, where a small, hand-drawn picture is taped to the wall, a crayon drawing of what appears to be a bakery, with 2 stick figures behind the counter, and a row of what Nico assumes are supposed to be croissants along the bottom. His son left it there 3 weeks ago, and Nico has not had the heart to take it down. "My son made that," Nico says. His voice is even. He is proud of how even it is. Nathan looks at the drawing for another moment. "How old?" 5. Nathan nods. He picks up his coffee. He does not ask anything else. But as he stands to leave, he looks at the drawing one more time, and something in his face, something quiet and unreadable, and entirely too close to recognition, makes Nico's hands go cold again beneath the counter. Nathan leaves. Nico reaches under the counter and finds the edge of the cloth he keeps there for polishing the display glass, and he holds it between both hands and does not let go until the feeling in his chest settles back below the line. It does not fully settle, because tomorrow morning, Nico's son is coming to the shop. Zane arrives at 8:22 in his school clothes with a backpack twice the size of his body and a half-eaten granola bar in his left hand. He drops the backpack on the stool behind the counter with the confidence of someone who has done this 100 times, because he has. On days when the after-school program runs late or the sitter cancels, this shop is his second home. He knows where the good pastries are kept. He knows not to touch the repair equipment. He knows to stay behind the counter and use his inside voice, which, in Zane's case, is still louder than most people's outside voice. "I want the chocolate one," Zane says, pointing at the display case. "Good morning to you too," Nico says. "Good morning, Dad. I want the chocolate one." Nico cuts him a small piece of chocolate croissant and sets it on a plate. Zane takes it to the corner of the counter, sits on his stool, and begins working through his morning homework with one hand while eating with the other. Nico watches him for exactly 3 seconds. This boy, this impossible, extraordinary, silver-eyed boy, and then turns back to the morning prep. At 8:39, the door slams. Nico does not turn around. He is at the espresso machine with his back to the room, and he focuses on the pressure gauge and keeps his hands moving and tells himself this is a normal morning, and Nathan Lancel is just a customer, and customers come and go, and none of this means anything. "Black coffee," Nathan says at the counter. "Give me 1 minute," Nico says, still not turning. Silence. Then, from the end of the counter, Zane's voice, bright and direct, and carrying the way only a 5-year-old's voice can carry in a quiet room. "Hi." A pause. "Hi," Nathan says. "Are you here for coffee?" "Yes." "My dad makes the best coffee," Zane says with complete authority. "He also makes the best chocolate croissant. I'm eating one right now." "I can see that," Nathan says. Nico closes his eyes for half a second. He turns. He sets the coffee on the counter. He does not look at Nathan's face. He looks at the cup, at the counter, at his own hands. $3.80, Nico says. Nathan pays. He does not move toward his table. He stands at the counter and looks at Zane, who has gone back to his homework with the focused intensity of someone who has already forgotten the conversation. "What grade?" Nathan asks. Zane looks up, holds up one hand, all 5 fingers spread wide. "Kindergarten," Nico says, flat, moving on. Your coffee's going to cool. Nathan looks at him, one of those straight, cutting looks that takes the temperature of a room in under a second. Then he picks up the cup and walks to his corner table. Nico exhales. For 6 minutes, everything is ordinary. Zane finishes his homework. Nico works through the morning orders. 2 regulars come and go. The bread in the back comes out clean this time, no caught edges, and Nico counts that as a small victory. Then Zane gets down from his stool. Zane, Nico says immediately, stay back here. I just want to throw my wrapper away. There's a bin right there. It's full. It is not full. Nico can see from where he stands that it is not full. But Zane has already ducked under the pass-through and is walking across the open floor toward the waste bin near the window, granola bar wrapper in hand. Because Zane has his own internal logic, and no amount of parental authority has ever fully overridden it. He passes Nathan's table. He stops. Nico watches it happen. Watches his son stop mid-step and turn and look at Nathan with the open, uncomplicated curiosity that 5-year-olds carry like a second skin. Nathan looks back at him. Neither of them speaks for a moment. Then Zane says, "Your eyes are grey." Nathan says, "They are." "Mine too," Zane says. "Everybody always asks me where I got them. My dad says I was just born like this." Nico's hands stop moving. Nathan looks at Zane for a long, quiet moment. Then he looks up, past Zane, across the room, directly at Nico. His expression has not changed, not exactly, but something behind it has shifted. Some deeper gear has turned. Nico can see it from here, across the shop floor, through the espresso steam and the morning light. Nathan looks at Zane again. "What's your name?" Nathan asks. "Zane," his son says. "That's a good name." Zane considers this seriously, the way children do when a compliment is given without extras attached. Then he nods, throws his wrapper away, and trots back behind the counter. Nathan picks up his coffee. He does not look at Nico again, but he stays for 23 minutes, not 11, 23. And when he finally stands and puts on his coat and walks to the door, he pauses with one hand on the frame and turns back one time. Not toward Zane, toward Nico. He looks at him the way you look at something you almost recognize, the way you look at a word you have read 100 times that has suddenly stopped making sense on the page, searching for something just behind the surface. Then he leaves. Nico picks up a cloth. He wipes down the counter that does not need wiping. He wipes it anyway, because Nathan Lancel just heard his son's name and saw his son's eyes and stayed for 23 minutes. And tomorrow he will come back. He always comes back. Nathan is at the counter at 8:38, 1 minute early. The difference is small enough that no one else would notice. Nico notices. He sets the coffee down without being asked. Nathan looks at the cup for a moment and then looks at Nico, and something in the air between them is different this morning. Thinner, like a layer of something has been stripped away overnight, and neither of them has decided yet how to behave without it. "No sun today," Nathan says. It is not quite a question, not quite an observation. It sits somewhere between them, waiting. "School," Nico says. Nathan nods. He wraps both hands around the cup. He talks like he's 30. "He reads above grade level," Nico says. "It's changed how he speaks." Nathan almost smiles. That near thing again, the shape without the landing. "Smart kid." "Yes," Nico says. "He is." The word comes out harder than Nico means it to, sharp at the edges. Nathan hears it. Nico can tell because those pale eyes shift just slightly, a recalibration, the look of a man filing something away. Nico turns back to the espresso machine. For 3 days after Zane's visit, Nathan's 11 minutes have stretched. Tuesday was 14, Wednesday was 19. This morning Nico can already feel it. Nathan is not in a hurry. Nathan is waiting, not for anything specific, just waiting the way a man waits when he has decided to stay in a room for reasons he has not fully named to himself yet. Nico knows this because he has spent 5 years being a man with unnamed reasons. "You built the jewellery repair counter yourself," Nathan says from behind him. Nico does not turn. The counterframe, yes. Sourced the glass locally. Took a week. You do everything alone. It is not a compliment. It is not a criticism. It is an observation with a question living underneath it, buried just deep enough to seem like it is not there. Nico turns. Is there something you need, Mr. Lancel? Pastry? Another coffee? No, Nathan says. He is looking at Nico steadily. I was just thinking. About what? A pause. Nathan runs his thumb once across the face of the watch on his wrist. That same habit. That same grief-shaped gesture. And then he says, my father used to say that people who build things alone are either the strongest kind or the most scared kind. Sometimes both. The shop is quiet. A car passes outside. The refrigerator hums. What did he decide? Nico asks, and immediately wishes he had not asked it. Because asking it means he is in this conversation now, fully in it. Nathan looks at him. He never decided. He said it changed depending on the day. Nico says nothing. What kind are you? Nathan asks. It is a soft question, the kind that does not look dangerous until it is already inside you. Nico picks up a cloth, wipes the counter. The kind that has a lot of orders to fill before 10 o'clock, he says. Have a good morning. Nathan finishes his coffee in the next 4 minutes. He leaves at 8:51. He does not push further. He does not press. He simply picks up his coat, buttons it, and walks out. Nico stands at the counter and tells himself, this is fine. Nathan Lancel is a customer. Customers make conversation. Conversation means nothing. He is not owed anything from Nico. Nico is not holding anything back. He goes to the back and pulls the next batch out of the oven and burns his wrist on the rack edge. He runs it under cold water and watches the redness rise and does not feel it the way he should, because all of his feeling has gone somewhere else this morning, and he does not know how to call it back. He thinks about his son at school right now, in a classroom full of children with brown eyes and hazel eyes and dark eyes, sitting at a desk with his silver-grey eyes open wide, reading above grade level, talking like he is 30. He thinks about Nathan's face when he asked, "What kind are you?" He thinks about 5 years of mornings he has spent behind this counter, building something from nothing, alone, because alone was safer than the alternative. Alone meant no one could walk back in through that door and upend everything. He thinks about the fact that Nathan Lancel has walked back in through that door every single morning for 2 weeks. He wraps his wrist. He goes back to the counter. He refills the display case. He keeps moving because moving is the only system he has ever built that reliably works. That afternoon his phone rings. It is his sister, Denise, calling from across town with the specific energy she reserves for moments when she already knows something is wrong and is waiting for Nico to admit it. "You sound strange," she says within 30 seconds. "I'm fine," Nico says. "You said fine the same way you said fine when Zane had that fever and you didn't sleep for 3 days. I'm tired." "Nico." "Denise." A pause on the line. Then, carefully, because Denise has learned over the years to come through the side door when the front one is locked. "Is it the shop? Finances?" "No." "Is it Zane?" "Zane is perfect." "Then what?" "There's a customer," Nico says. And then he stops, because he has said too much and not enough, and both things at the same time, and his sister's silence on the other end of the line tells him she heard all of it. "Nico," she says, quieter now. "It's nothing," he says. "I'll call you later." He hangs up. He stares at the phone in his hand. He pulls up the original repair ticket in his system. Nathan Lancel, 1 vintage timepiece. Paid in full. Contact number on file. He stares at the number. He puts his phone face down on the counter. Tomorrow, he tells himself. Tomorrow he will figure out what to do with this. He will make a decision. He will stop reacting and start acting like a man who has a plan. He picks up his son from the after-school program at 4:30. Zane talks the entire walk home about a book they started in class and a boy named Theo who can already do multiplication. Nico listens to every word and holds Zane's hand at the crosswalk and tells himself the feeling in his chest is just the cold air and not the truth pressing up from underneath everything he has built. "Dad," Zane says when they are almost home. "Yeah, bud?" "That man from the coffee shop, the one with eyes like mine." Nico slows his pace, just slightly. "What about him?" Zane is quiet for half a step. "Is he going to come back?" Nico looks down at his son, at the silver eyes turned up toward him, clear and direct and carrying no agenda, because children that age do not yet know how to carry one. "I don't know," Nico says, which is not a lie. It is just not the whole truth, and by morning it will matter more than he is ready for. It happens fast. Zane is behind the counter again. Saturday, no school, the sitter has a conflict, and he has his crayons spread across the far end of the counter, and he is drawing something with the focused, serious energy of a person doing important work. Nico is halfway through the morning rush when the door slams at 8:42, and Nathan Lancel walks in, and everything in Nico's body goes tight and still at the same moment. He keeps moving, hands on the espresso machine, eyes forward. He can hear Nathan settle at the counter rather than going directly to his table, which is new, and the shift in routine lands in Nico's chest like a dropped weight. "The usual?" Nico says. "Yes," Nathan says. Nico makes the coffee, sets it down, does not make eye contact. From the end of the counter, Zane looks up from his drawing. He sees Nathan. His face does the thing it does, that open, instant recognition that 5-year-olds carry with no filter, no strategy, nothing between the seeing and the showing. "You're back," Zane says. Nathan looks at him. "I am." "I knew you'd come back," Zane says with complete confidence, as though he had made a prediction and is now collecting on it. "I told my dad." Nico goes very still. Nathan looks at Nico. "Did he?" "Kids say things," Nico says. His voice is flat. He turns to wipe down the machine. "What are you drawing?" Nathan asks Zane. Zane holds up the paper. It is, as far as Nico can tell from the corner of his eye, a person with very long legs standing next to a building. "That's you," Zane says, pointing to the long-legged figure. "And that's our shop. I'm going to put it on the wall next to my other one." Nathan is quiet for a moment. "You drew me." "You have the same eyes as me," Zane says, as though this explains everything, which in Zane's internal logic it probably does. "My teacher says eyes are windows. I think it means we're the same kind." The shop is not loud, but in this moment it becomes something else. A held breath. A narrowing. Nathan sets his cup down very carefully. He looks at the drawing. Then he looks at Zane with an expression that Nico has not seen on him before. Not the cut and assess look, not the near smile, not the careful blankness. This is something that has no name for it. Something that starts in the eyes and does not stop. "How old are you, Zane?" Nathan asks. 5, Zane says. "I'll be 6 in April." Nathan nods slowly. He looks at the drawing again. His jaw is tight. His thumb has moved to the face of his watch without him seeming to know it. Nico turns. He has to, because something in the room has changed, and he can feel it the way you feel the second before a door opens. The pressure shift, the air rearranging. Nathan looks up at him. Not the usual look, not the assessing look, not the comfortable, measured, controlled look of a man who has never once not known what he was doing. This look has something cracked open behind it. "April," Nathan says. Quiet. Just the word. Nico says nothing. "What year was he born?" Nathan says, and it is not a question. It is so far from a question that the shape of it barely resembles one. It is a man who already has a number forming in his mind, and is watching to see if Nico confirms it. Nico looks at his son. Zane has gone back to his drawing, adding what appears to be a very large sun in the upper right corner, already 3 steps ahead in his own world and paying no attention to the temperature of the room. "Why do you ask?" Nico says. Nathan stands up from the stool. He is not aggressive. He is not loud. He is the opposite of loud, the kind of quiet that is larger than any sound. He looks at Nico across the counter with those silver-grey eyes, and he waits. Nico's hands are at his sides. He does not pick up a cloth. He does not wipe a surface. He does not reach for a task to hide behind. He just stands there in the middle of the life he built and looks at the man standing on the other side of it. Nico, Nathan says. For the first time. His name, in Nathan's mouth. After 5 years of Nathan not even knowing his name existed. And that right there, is what breaks the stillness. Not a revelation, not a confrontation, just his own name said out loud by a man who should not be able to say it with that much weight behind it, as though the name means something Nathan is only now remembering. Zane looks up from his drawing. He looks at Nathan. He looks at his father. He looks back at Nathan. And in the clear, unfiltered way of a child who does not yet know what he is seeing, but knows something real is happening, he says, "Do you know my dad?" The question lands in the room like the first crack in ice. Nathan does not answer Zane. He keeps his eyes on Nico, and Nico knows, with every part of himself he has spent 5 years protecting, that the next word belongs to him. Nico answers, not with words, not yet. He answers the way the body answers before the mind gives permission. His shoulders drop exactly 1 inch, his jaw loosens, and the breath he pulls in is the kind that has been sitting in the bottom of his lungs for 5 years waiting to be used. He looks at his son. "Zane, go get your backpack from the back room. I put a new book in the front pocket this morning." Zane's eyes light up immediately. He is off the stool and through the pass-through in 4 seconds flat, already asking which book from the other side of the wall, his voice trailing behind him like a ribbon. The shop is empty, except for the 2 of them. Nathan has not moved. He is still standing on the customer side of the counter, with his hands loose at his sides, and that cracked open look behind his eyes that has not gone anywhere. He is waiting. He has the particular stillness of a man who has learned to wait for the room to come to him, because the room always does. Not this time. Nico speaks first. "His name is Zane Devaughn Kellerman," he says. "He is 5 years old. He will be 6 in April. He reads at a 2nd grade level. He is afraid of loud thunderstorms, and he sleeps with a stuffed rabbit named Captain that he has had since he was 8 months old." He stops. He looks directly at Nathan. "And yes, I know why you are asking." Nathan's expression does not collapse. It does not explode. It does the thing that controlled people do when something enormous arrives. It goes very, very still. "How long have you known who I was?" Nathan says. "Since the first morning," Nico says. "The claim ticket had your name." A beat of silence so sharp it has edges. "You knew for 2 weeks," Nathan says. "Yes." "And you said nothing?" "No," Nico says. "I did not." Nathan puts both hands flat on the counter. Not aggressive, grounding, like a man who needs to feel something solid under him while the floor is moving. Why? And that is the question, isn't it? The one Nico has turned over in his hands every night for 2 weeks, and every year for 5 years before that. The why that does not have one clean answer, because it is made of 20 smaller answers stacked on top of each other, all of them true, none of them complete. "Because the last time I saw you," Nico says, "I was 20 years old, and I left the next morning before you woke up. Because I spent 3 weeks after that waiting to hear from you, and I never did. Because by the time I found out I was carrying your child, I had already decided that a man who could spend a night with someone and never once think to check on them was not a man I was going to chase down." His voice stays even. He has rehearsed this without meaning to. "Because I built this, on my own. And I was not going to walk up to a stranger's counter and say, 'Here is the thing you left behind,' without knowing first whether you were the kind of person who deserved to know." Nathan is looking at him. His jaw is tight enough to see the muscle working. "And now?" Nathan says. 2 weeks of coffee, 2 weeks of watching. What did you decide?" Nico looks at the pass-through. He can hear Zane in the back room, the zip of a backpack, the soft, excited noise he makes when he finds something new. "I haven't decided," Nico says. "You decided for me. You kept coming back." "I kept coming back," Nathan says slowly, "because something in this shop felt like the only quiet place in my life, and I did not know why." The words land differently than either of them expects. Nico hears them, and something in his chest does not know what to do with them, so it just sits there, aching. From the back room, Zane calls out, "Dad, is this the one about the kid who goes to space?" "That's the one," Nico calls back. His voice is steady. He does not know how. He looks at Nathan. "I need you to hear me clearly right now. That boy in the back room does not know anything. He has never asked me a question I could not answer safely. I will not have his world turned over because two adults do not have their conversation in the right order." Nathan nods once, slow. "I understand." "Do you?" "Yes," Nathan says, and the word carries the weight of a man who means it. Not because it is easy, but because he has made a decision, and his decisions do not reverse. "I won't say anything to him. Not today." He pauses. "But Nico, we are not done with this conversation." Zane comes back through the pass-through with the book already open to page 1, backpack bouncing. He looks between the two adults with the radar children have for rooms that have changed while they were not watching. He does not ask about it. He climbs onto his stool and goes back to his drawing with the book propped open beside it, doing 3 things at once the way he always does. Nathan picks up his coffee cup. He looks at Zane one more time, that long, quiet, measuring look that is not measuring anymore, but something else entirely. And then he looks at Nico. "Tomorrow," he says. Nico does not agree out loud, but he does not disagree either. Nathan leaves at 9:17, the longest he has ever stayed. That night, Nico sits at the kitchen table again with both hands flat on the surface, and this time the breathing does not help. His sister Denise calls at 8, and he answers on the second ring, which is how she knows immediately that everything has changed. He tells her, not everything, enough. He tells her Nathan's name, and that he has been coming to the shop, and that Zane asked the question in front of both of them this morning, and that Nathan knows. Denise is quiet for a long time. "Nico," she says finally. "I know," he says. "What are you going to do?" He looks at the doorway to Zane's room. The light is off. The house is quiet. Captain the stuffed rabbit is tucked under one small arm, and the whole world in that room is still simple and safe, and exactly the size it needs to be. "I don't know yet," Nico says. "Yes, you do," Denise says. "You've known for 5 years. You just haven't been ready to say it out loud." He hangs up at 8:40. He sits in the quiet for a long time, and somewhere between 8:40 and midnight, the thing he has been protecting himself from stops feeling like a threat and starts feeling like the only door left in the room. He does not sleep, but by morning, he is ready. Nathan is there when Nico unlocks the front door at 8:15. Not inside, outside, standing on the sidewalk with his coat collar up against the early morning cold, hands in his pockets, breath visible in the air. He has been waiting. How long, Nico cannot tell. Long enough that the cold has settled into his posture. Nico holds the door open without a word. Nathan comes inside. Nico locks the door behind them. The shop does not open for another 20 minutes. The lights are only half on. The espresso machine is still warming up. The display case is empty, the pastries still in the back cooling on their racks. It is just the two of them in a room that feels much smaller than it did yesterday. "Sit down," Nico says. Nathan sits at the counter. Nico goes behind it. He does not make coffee. He does not reach for anything. He just stands on his side of the counter and looks at the man across from him, and finally lets himself look, fully, without managing it, without cutting it short. Nathan looks tired. Not in a physical way, in the way a person looks when something has been running inside them all night that they could not turn off. Good, Nico thinks, then immediately feels ashamed of the thought. "I need to ask you something," Nathan says, "and I need you to answer me straight." "Go ahead," Nico says. "That night," Nathan stops, starts again. 5 years ago, the conference in Atlanta, the hotel bar. You remember it? It is not a question. Of course it is not a question. "Yes," Nico says. "I remember it too," Nathan says. "I need you to know that." I have thought about that night more times than I can count, and not because of what it was, but because of how it ended. I woke up and you were gone. No note, no number, nothing. His voice stays low and controlled, but something underneath it is not controlled at all. I looked, Nico. I asked the front desk. They had no record of your room because you had checked out at 5 in the morning. I had a first name and a face, and nothing else. Nico's hands are very still on the counter. You looked, Nico says. For 3 weeks, Nathan says. I had people check conference registrations. I had someone pull the guest list. Your name wasn't on it. You were a +1 for someone else's registration, and I couldn't find the thread. He exhales. And then I had to stop, because stopping was the only thing that made sense, and I have regretted it every day since. The espresso machine finishes warming. The sound fills the silence for 3 full seconds. Nico looks at the counter surface, at the grain of the wood he sanded himself, the finish he applied in 3 coats on a January weekend 4 years ago, with Zane asleep in the back room. I did not know you looked, Nico says. I know you didn't, Nathan says. That's the problem. The word problem lands wrong, and Nathan hears it the moment it leaves his mouth. That's not... He stops, resets. What I mean is that we have both been operating without the full picture, and I am trying to figure out how to be in the same room as that. Nico looks up at him. How to be in the same room as the fact that you have a 5-year-old son. Nathan does not flinch. Yes, that. Say it, Nico says. Say the whole thing out loud. A long pause. Nathan's jaw works once. Then, I have a son. He has my eyes. He is 5 years old, and I did not know he existed until yesterday. He holds Nico's gaze. And you have been carrying that alone for 5 years. The room goes very quiet. Nico did not expect that last part. He expected accusation. He prepared for anger. He had the whole shape of Nathan's anger mapped out in his mind last night. The cold fury, the controlled outrage of a powerful man who has been kept from something that belongs to him. He did not prepare for grief. Nathan's face is not angry. It is the face of a man who has just done the math on 5 years of his son's life and found himself missing from every single page of it. And something in Nico, something he has kept behind reinforced walls for half a decade, cracks along a line he did not know was there. I was 20 years old, Nico says. His voice is not steady anymore. I was 20, and I was alone, and I was terrified. And the story I told myself was that you didn't want me, that I was easy to walk away from. I built my entire life on that story, Nathan. I built this shop on it. I raised our son on it. And if that story is wrong... He stops. His throat is tight. If that story is wrong, then I don't know what the last 5 years were for. Nathan stands up. He does not come around the counter. He does not reach for Nico. He just stands and looks at him from across the counter with those grey eyes that Nico sees every morning in his son's face, and he says, "They were for him. Every single day of it was for him. That is what they were for." Nico presses the back of his hand against his mouth. He will not cry in his own shop before it opens. He has a rule about that. He breaks the rule. Just barely. Just enough for his eyes to go bright and his breath to come out uneven once before he pulls it back. Nathan watches him. He does not look away. "I'm angry," Nathan says. "I need you to know that. Not at you. Not only at you. At the situation. At the 5 years. At the version of me that gave up looking too soon." His voice is rough at the edges. "I'm angry, and I don't know what to do with it yet. But I know that whatever comes next, I am not walking out of that door and pretending I don't have a son." Nico looks at him for a long time. "His favourite colour is orange," Nico says finally. "He hates the texture of scrambled eggs, but he'll eat them if you put hot sauce on top. He cannot fall asleep without someone reading to him first. He is afraid of thunderstorms, but he won't admit it because he says he's brave." Nico's voice is barely above a low sound now. "He is the best thing I have ever done." He is the best thing either of us will ever do. Nathan is very still. I know, he says, like he already believes it. Like he has believed it since the moment a small boy in a bakery looked up at him and said, "Your eyes are grey." Outside, the first morning customer tries the door, finds it locked, cups their hands to the glass and peers inside. Nico and Nathan do not move for another 3 seconds. Then Nico straightens. He squares his shoulders. He walks to the door and unlocks it, and the morning comes rushing back in. Noise, cold air, the smell of the street, the ordinary world that kept moving through all of it. Nathan stays at the counter. He orders his black coffee. He pays. He sits at the corner table. He stays for 41 minutes. And when he leaves, he pauses at the door. The same pause, the same frame, the same turn back. But this time the look on his face is not searching. This time he looks like a man who has found what he came for, and is not sure yet what to do with it. 3 days pass without Nathan coming to the shop. Nico knows he is not gone. He does not have the feeling of someone who has left. He has the feeling of someone standing just outside the frame of a picture, deciding where to step in. Nico has learned the difference between the two over 5 years of reading rooms and people, and the space between what someone says and what they mean. He keeps the shop running. He fills orders. He repairs 2 pieces, a thin gold chain with a broken clasp, and a man's signet ring that needs resizing. He picks Zane up from school. He reads to him at night. He does all of it with the specific, focused steadiness of a person who has decided not to fall apart until they have more information. On the 4th morning, his phone rings at 7:48. Unknown number. He almost does not answer. He answers. It's Nathan. Nico leans against the back counter. I know. I need a few days, Nathan says. Not because I'm backing away. I need you to understand that clearly. I am not backing away. I have some things I need to handle on my end before I can show up the way I need to show up. What kind of things? Nico says. My schedule, my team, my life. A pause. I've been running a company for 8 years. The way I've been running it doesn't leave room for what I need it to leave room for now. Nico processes that slowly. You're rearranging things. Yes. For Zane. For both of you, Nathan says. And then, before Nico can respond to that, how is he? The question is so simple, so direct, so entirely without strategy. It hits Nico somewhere undefended. He asked about you again last night, Nico says. He wanted to know if the man with the matching eyes was coming back. A silence on the line, long enough that Nico can hear the faint ambient sound of wherever Nathan is. Traffic, wind, the particular hum of a city moving at full speed around a man who is standing still. What did you tell him? Nathan says. I told him I thought so, Nico says. I told him some people take a few days to figure out their schedule. That's true, Nathan says. I know, Nico says. That's why I said it. Another silence. This one is different from the first, softer at the edges, without the tension that has lived in every exchange between them for 2 weeks. It feels like a pause between 2 people who have stopped performing and started simply existing in the same space, even over a phone line, even with a city between them. Nico, Nathan says. Yeah. I'm sorry it took me 5 years to find my way back to that shop. Nico closes his eyes, opens them. The back room is quiet. The oven light is on. Everything is exactly the same as it was 30 seconds ago. You didn't know you were looking for it, Nico says. No, Nathan says, but I should have looked harder for you. Nico does not answer that. He does not have an answer that is fair to either of them. He just holds the phone against his ear and breathes, and lets the words exist without covering them up. They hang up 4 minutes later. No plan made. No timeline set. Just 2 people who have finally stopped pretending the conversation is not happening. That afternoon, Denise comes to the shop. She sits across from Nico at the small table in the back room with 2 cups of tea and looks at her brother with the particular expression she has been perfecting since they were children. Part love, Part no nonsense. Part, I will say the thing you are avoiding whether you want me to or not. How are you actually doing? She says. I'm functional, Nico says. That is the most alarming thing you could have said. I'm okay, Denise. She looks at him. Are you angry at him? Nico thinks about that honestly. He has not let himself sit with the question directly. I was, for a long time, but it's hard to stay angry at someone when you find out the story you told yourself about them wasn't the whole story. The story you told yourself kept you going, Denise says. Not arguing, just naming it. I know, Nico says. And now I don't know what replaces it. Maybe nothing replaces it, she says. Maybe you just add the new information and the whole picture gets bigger. Nico wraps his hands around his cup. He wants to be in Zane's life. Denise nods slowly. And in yours? Nico looks at the surface of his tea. He said for both of you. Denise is quiet for a moment, then, what do you want, Nico? Not what is right for Zane. Not what is fair. What do you want? He does not answer immediately. He sits with the question the way he has not allowed himself to sit with anything for 5 years, without managing it, without moving away from it before it can reach him. I want to not be so tired, he says finally. I want Zane to know where his eyes come from. I want... He stops. Say it, Denise says quietly. I want it to not have been for nothing, Nico says. That night, what I felt, I want it to have been real. Denise reaches across the table and puts her hand over his. She does not say anything. She does not need to. They sit like that until the oven timer goes off, and Nico gets up, and the ordinary world comes back in through the walls the way it always does, patient and relentless. 2 days later, at 8:39 in the morning, the door slams. Nathan Lancel is at the counter. No coat this time. Dark sweater, sleeves pushed to the forearms, the watch on his right wrist where it always is. He looks different. Not lighter exactly, more present. Like a man who has put something down that he was carrying at an angle and is now standing straight for the first time in a while. He does not sit at the corner table. He stays at the counter. Black coffee, he says. I know, Nico says. And something in the way those two answers land, overlapping, without friction, already knowing, makes the corner of Nathan's mouth do the thing it does. Except this time, it does not stop. This time it finishes. A real smile, narrow and quiet, but there. Nico turns to make the coffee, so Nathan cannot see what his own face is doing. He does not entirely succeed. Zane sees Nathan the moment he comes through the back with his backpack the following Saturday. He stops in the pass-through doorway, looks at Nathan at the counter, looks at his father. Then he walks straight up to Nathan, the way he walks toward everything that interests him. Direct, no hesitation, operating on the specific confidence of a child who has never yet learned that people can disappoint you all the way. You came back, Zane says. I told you I would, Nathan says. Zane tilts his head. You didn't tell me. My dad told me. Your dad was right, Nathan says. Zane considers this. Then he climbs up onto the stool next to Nathan, not the far end of the counter where he usually sits, but right next to him, and sets his backpack on his lap and opens it, and begins pulling out his crayons with the focused energy of someone who has a project in mind. Nico watches from behind the espresso machine. He watches Nathan track every movement his son makes, with an expression that is not careful anymore. It is open. It is the face of a man who has decided to stop protecting himself from something and just let it be what it is. Zane lines his crayons up in a row. He picks orange first, which is always first. He begins drawing. What are you making? Nathan asks. A family, Zane says, simply, without looking up. The espresso machine finishes. Nico pours. He sets Nathan's cup down. He does not trust himself to say anything, so he says nothing. Nathan looks at the cup. Then he looks at Nico. Thank you. It's just coffee, Nico says. It's not, Nathan says. They look at each other across the counter. No managed expression. No careful distance. Just two people with 5 years between them and a small boy drawing a family in orange crayon at the counter, and the whole complicated true weight of all of it sitting right there in the open air of a small shop on an ordinary Saturday morning. Zane holds up his drawing. 3 figures, 1 small, 2 tall, all of them standing in front of a building with a large sign that says, in Zane's spelling, Baekry. That's me, Zane says, pointing to the small figure. That's Dad. He points to the taller figure on the left. Then he points to the third figure on the right. He looks at Nathan. I didn't know your name to write it. Nathan looks at the drawing for a long moment. Nathan, he says. Zane nods seriously, picks up his orange crayon, writes in careful kindergarten letters along the bottom of the page. Nathan. He holds it up for inspection. Close enough, Nathan says. His voice has gone rough at the edges. Zane seems satisfied. He puts the drawing on the counter and goes back to his backpack for his book. Nathan picks up the drawing. He looks at it for a long time. He sets it down. He picks up his coffee. I want to talk to him, Nathan says quietly to Nico. Not everything, not yet, but I want him to know who I am. Nico looks at his son, currently face deep in his spacebook with orange crayon still in hand, already in another universe. He already knows who you are, Nico says. He just doesn't have the word for it yet. Nathan absorbs that slowly. Then when you're ready, Nathan says, I'll be here. Nico looks at him. You keep saying that. Because I keep meaning it, Nathan says. Nico picks up the cloth. He does not wipe the counter. He just holds it. Old habit that has become the physical form of what it feels like to steady himself. He holds it and looks at this man and at his son and at the shop he built from a single idea and 5 years of refusing to stop moving. There's something I need to say to you, Nico says, and I need to say it once and have it be done. Nathan puts his cup down, gives him his full attention. I don't regret any of it, Nico says. Not the leaving, not the raising him alone, not the years I spent building this without any help from anyone. I would do every day of it again because it made him who he is, and it made me who I am. He holds Nathan's gaze. But I also can't keep pretending that carrying it alone was easy. It wasn't. And I'm done pretending it was. Nathan does not say I'm sorry. He has said it, and it has been received, and he understands the difference between an apology and an action. What do you need from me now? He says. Nico is quiet for a moment. I need you to be consistent. I don't need perfect. I don't need grand. I need a man who shows up when he says he's going to show up. I can do that, Nathan says. Every time, Nico says, because he will be watching every time. Nathan looks at Zane, back at Nico. I know, he says, and I will. Zane looks up from his book at this exact moment with no awareness that anything significant has just happened. Dad, what's a light year? It's how far light travels in a full year, Nico says. Zane processes this. That's really far. It is, Nico says. Can we go there someday? Not in our lifetime, Nico says. Zane looks deeply disappointed, then immediately recovered. He looks at Nathan. Did you know about light years? I did, Nathan says. My dad knows everything, Zane informs him seriously. But it's good that you know too. Nathan looks at Nico. Nico looks at his coffee machine. Something in the shop shifts. Not dramatically, not with music or announcement, just quietly, the way light shifts when clouds move off the sun. The same room, but everything suddenly warmer and easier to see. The last Saturday of the month, Nathan arrives at 8:30 with a small paper bag in his hand. Nico sees it before he sees Nathan's face. He is already at the espresso machine, and he looks up and there is Nathan coming through the door with his usual presents and his usual coat and something folded into the easy line of his shoulders that was not there 3 weeks ago. He sets the bag on the counter without explanation. Nico looks at it. What is this? Orange muffins, Nathan says. From the place 2 blocks east. Zane mentioned he likes the ones with the sugar tops. Nico looks up at him slowly. He mentioned it once, Nico says, in passing. I was listening, Nathan says. Nico picks up the bag, opens it. 3 muffins, sugar tops, perfect orange colour. He closes it again. He sets it back on the counter and turns back to the espresso machine because he does not trust his face right now. Thank you, he says. It's just muffins, Nathan says. Nico almost smiles. It's not. When Zane comes in at 8:50, he spots the bag immediately, with the instinct of a child who can detect sugar from 3 rooms away. He opens it. He sees the muffins. He looks at Nathan. You got these for me, Zane says, not a question. I heard they were your favourite, Nathan says. Zane takes one out with the solemn care of a person handling something precious. He takes one bite, looks at the ceiling, looks back at Nathan. You can come back, he announces, whenever you want. Nathan looks at Nico. Nico looks at the counter. I plan to, Nathan says. It is not the moment everything resolves. That is not how real things resolve. There are still conversations ahead that will be harder than the ones they have already had. There are still nights Nico will sit at the kitchen table and feel the full weight of what the last 5 years cost. There will be mornings Nathan stands outside the door, feeling the specific dread of a man who is learning how to be a father at the same time as he is learning how to be the kind of man who deserves to be one. None of that is finished. But this morning, in this shop, with orange muffin crumbs on the counter and Zane already back to his book, and Nathan sitting on the stool with his coffee and his father's watch on his wrist, and his eyes, his son's eyes, open and present and not going anywhere. This morning is something. Nico slides a cup across the counter to Nathan without being asked. Their fingers do not touch. There is still an inch of counter between them, but neither of them steps back from it. He's going to want to know soon, Nico says quietly, who you are to him. Specifically. I know, Nathan says. Are you ready for that? Nathan looks at Zane. His son colouring at the counter, orange crayon first, always orange first. I've been getting ready since the morning he told me I had eyes like his, he says. Nico nods once. They stand like that together in the same space they have been slowly, carefully, honestly moving toward for a month. Not close enough to call it anything yet, but close enough to feel what it could become. Outside, the city moves the way it always does, indifferent, relentless, ordinary. Inside this small shop on this particular Saturday morning, 3 people are in the same room for the first time, and none of them are alone anymore. If this story stayed with you, if you felt even one moment of what Nico carried for 5 years, or what Nathan felt the morning he saw those silver eyes, please subscribe to this channel right now and turn on your notifications so you do not miss a single story. Every week we bring you narratives that are real in the way that counts, emotionally honest, human, and built to stay with you long after the final word. Drop a comment below and tell us what this story made you feel. Tell us whose side you were on. Tell us what you would have done differently. Your thoughts do not just matter to us, they inspire the people reading right alongside you. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it, and we will see you in the next one.